Joining us now is professor of politics, political science, Dr. Quentin Kidd from Christopher Newport University. He's also the chair of the political center there, and he is the key person that is behind interpreting and putting on the Christopher Newport University public polling. Now, you know Dr. Quentin Kidd. He's been on my show many times. Great guy, fair and honest. And the Christopher Newport University Polling Center had a poll released on Friday that showed unequivocally Virginians now opposed to expanding Medicaid. Well, the Democrats, statewide and nationally, went ballistic over it and attacked the poll, saying that the questions were not asked accurately. Now, this is the same polling center that I've had 30 Democrats on my show since February who cited the poll every time they came on the air when the results were favorable to expanding Medicaid. So when things don't go your way, attack the polling question. So to sort this all out, the guy that's behind it, Dr. Quentin Kidd. Doctor, what do you make of this whole thing?
Well, I mean, I think your assessment is probably pretty accurate. I mean, it's typical when we put out polling that if there's anything sort of tricky or controversial and one side doesn't like it or the other side doesn't like it, then I'll take some hits for various things like the way questions were worded or that sort of stuff. So it comes with the game, it comes with the territory. But I think you're right. I think people who didn't like the results basically needed to say something about it, and they went after the way we asked the question, which is fine.
I thought it was absurd. I read your two questions. I thought both of them captured the essence of what you were trying to get people surveyed on at different points in time. And when you did the poll in February and it came out that 58% of people were supportive of expanding Medicaid in Virginia, I thought the question was asked, in a way that maybe I wouldn't have asked it, but I never disputed the findings of the poll, ever. I basically said, hey, a majority of Virginians right now are saying that Medicaid should be expanded. Now you go to, that was in February, and every Democrat, I'm telling you, Dr. Kidd, I had on my show, and I've had them all on. Almost every senator came on the show, and the first 3 minutes, they cited your poll. Now you get the results shifting the other way, and I think there is undoubtedly a public policy shift in Virginia. Now they're all saying, well, they don't believe in the poll results because they don't like the question. Boy, that seems awfully disingenuous to me.
Well, let me just explain why we did what we did. So in the poll that everybody cites that we released in early February, it was in the field in mid-January, from January 15th to the 22nd. And we asked two questions at that time about Medicaid. We asked three questions, but two that are relevant here about Medicaid expansion. And at that point in the debate, the full contours of the debate hadn't actually been made really clear yet. The so-called Marketplace Virginia option hadn't been unveiled completely yet, and so we asked a very generic Medicaid expansion question, and that's the one where we found 56% of people supported general expansion. But we followed that question up with another question that introduced the Republican response, the question about whether the federal government would pay for its share. And what we found is support for Medicaid expansion dropped to 41% if the federal government wasn't going to pay part of its share. And this is the criticism that Speaker Howell had introduced in an op-ed in a couple of weeks earlier. So that made me realize that if I were to poll on Medicaid again, I had no idea the debate would still be going on. I needed to ask a full head-to-head question. I needed to lay out the Democratic proposal and then the Republican response. And that's what we did this time. And we find the numbers, 41% support, 53% oppose, very similar to the numbers that we found in January when we asked the question about whether the federal government wouldn't pay its share. At that point, we found 41-54. So I'm not that surprised at these results, and I think part of the surprise Democrats, at least supporters, are expressing is that they didn't pay attention to that second question in January that showed there was a weakness there.
Well, because they were not interested, in my view, in what the crosstab showed. What they were interested was a political talking point, basically, and they utilized the results of your poll in order to say that. But I think what you've just laid out is clear. I mean, basically, you got the same answer on the fundamental question in February as you did in May. Look, if I talk to 100 people on the street that are informed about this, there is not a majority that tell me they are for expanding MedX in Virginia. And you asked a fundamental question, because if the federal money is not there, everybody knows it's going to be a disaster, and a lot of people don't believe the federal money is sustainable. Doctor.
Well, that's the criticism that opponents, that's the question, I should say, that opponents have raised. And then they've also raised a question about, whether there's fraud and abuse in Medicaid that needs to be cleaned up first. Those are the two primary sort of points that the speaker has led on in opposition to this expansion. I mean, in my mind, this means that supporters of Medicaid, whatever they want to call it, Marketplace Virginia, Medicaid expansion, whatever, haven't done a good job of selling their position, and so the polling just indicates to me that they haven't done a good job of selling their position. And if their position is strong enough to sell better, then they need to figure out a way to sell it better. I mean, I don't have when we do this kind of polling, we don't have a position in the game here. We're just trying to assess public opinion in the best way we can, and I stand by the question that we released, the data that we released on Thursday. I mean, I think the question is pretty solid. You can like it or not like it, but the question is pretty solid.
Well, I think it is also, and what disturbs me about it is the fact that attacking the question, or the polling outfit, if you will, is not having an honest debate. I mean, it's one thing if the polling is done by a Republican consulting firm or something, and you can argue with that. But when you're attacking the way a poll is being done by an accredited and respected university, not only in Virginia but nationally, where you've had success with poll after poll, and you've been pretty accurate. If you look back at some of your results, Dr. Kidd, they've been darn accurate. I think when you start then attacking the pollster or the polling outfit or the way the question got phrased, I don't think you're being honest about what this debate is in Virginia, and you're politicizing it.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, and it's, I recognize that this is political terrain that we're walking on, but I think it's really important, and this is the reason we do these surveys. It's really important for the public voice to be heard in this debate. I mean, right now the debate in Richmond over this question of expanding Medicaid is happening both in the public and in the private sphere. I mean, I think everybody's just sort of each side is kind of waiting out the other right now. There's sort of a game of chicken going on in Richmond. Which side is going to be most anxious about a potential government shutdown over a budget? And I think the public voice needs to be a part of that. And so that's really what we're trying to do, public service research, give the public voice a place at the table. And right now, if both sides' arguments are laid out, the public says we're skeptical about expansion. I think that means that the supporters of expansion need to make their case stronger if they really believe that expansion is the best thing to happen. And I think they probably haven't been making it as effectively as they could.
Well, I think you hit it on the head, Dr. Quentin Kidd. And the other thing that I want to bring attention to is, if you look deeper in your poll, the way I interpreted it is that if the government gets shut down, everybody is going to get blamed. I mean, this is a lose-lose for basically everybody. Everybody is going to get blamed, but I think at the end of the day, it doesn't bode well for Governor McAuliffe because his positives are simply not being generated now, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're showing him at 44% approval, and that's pretty consistent, I think, with some other approval ratings that have come out, other polling outfits that have polled his approval ratings. I mean, I think he's being drugged down in part by President Obama and in part by what's going on in Virginia right now, the shutdown. But you're right. The real goal, what we were after in doing this survey was we were after understanding what the public would think about the entire process. So if we went from Medicaid expansion, debate, shutdown, through government shutdown, what would the public think? And the public would cast, nobody would come through this shutdown looking good. The public would just tar everybody. They would be upset with everybody, Governor McAuliffe included. And they don't want a shutdown. They want, some sort of compromise in the General Assembly to make sure that we don't have a shutdown. So that was really the goal of the project, was to see what the public's views would be on shutdown and who they would blame and that sort of stuff. So, I think it's bad for everybody if we go through shutdown. It's bad for everybody who's elected. It's bad for the governor. And it's bad for the way Virginians perceive the way government in Virginia is supposed to work, because that's not really the way we're used to the General Assembly and government working in Richmond.
Common Sense News Time 823. This is the John Fredericks Radio Network in Washington, D.C. and across Virginia. We're with Dr. Quentin Kidd from Christopher Newport University. He is the chair of the Judy Wasson Center on Politics. Now, here's my question, Dr. Kidd. Where do we go from here?
Well, I expect that you'll see Governor McAuliffe and supporters of Medicaid expansion. I think they're going to shift. I mean, if they're smart, they'll do this. They're going to shift tactics a little bit and probably go more towards the grassroots, probably try to put a human face on Medicaid expansion. I mean, I think part of what's been going on is that Virginians associate Medicaid expansion with hospitals, big institutions, and it's hard to relate to a hospital. It's hard to relate to a big institution like that. It's easier to relate to humans who, human faces and human stories. And so I think we're going to see a shift a little bit, I think, over the next several weeks on this. I don't know that opponents will do much more than they are doing because, I mean, there's not much. I mean, they're winning in terms of the debate right now, I think. I mean, stalemate is probably a win as far as they're concerned because it means that, Medicaid expansion is less likely to happen. But in the end, in about 3 to 4 weeks, Virginia agencies are going to start getting instructions about how to shut down their agencies. And that is going to send a ripple through the state. I think people are going to get more serious about it then. And so we'll either see one side or the other back down, or we'll see a strategic compromise on the part of both sides. But I think when the government starts to shut down, it'll take several weeks to shut it down. Then we'll start seeing people get serious.
Well, and I think you're right, Dr. Kidd, as far as who's winning the debate. I think the Republicans, those opposed to expanding Medicaid in Virginia, are winning the debate, and I think they're winning it on simply the dollar and cents issue. And I also believe you nailed it, as we had said for weeks. Terry McAuliffe, the Maxter, going around to big hospitals with CEOs, making millions of dollars, saying that they're going to go under. I just don't think it worked. And I think they would have been a lot better off if they're interviewing families that have both parents working and can't afford insurance and tug on the heartstrings. But at the end of the day, look, everybody needs something. There's no money. Everybody understands that eventually these federal dollars are going to dry up, and then Virginians are going to get caught holding the bag. I think the other argument that Republicans have made very, very well is tying it to Obamacare in general. And although many people are now saying, well, Obamacare is working, so many millions of people have signed up, the average person on the street knows they got screwed, and that over 50% of the people who have signed up because they either got a subsidy or it's free. So I just don't think the Democrats, Dr. Kidd, are winning this argument.
Well, they're clearly not right now. I mean, if they were winning the argument, then we would, there would be some sort of bill through the General Assembly that accomplished their goals. They're clearly not right now. And the real question is, can they shift? Do they have time? I mean, we have 8 weeks or so, a little over 8 weeks before, the debt, July 1, when things would shut down. So in 8 weeks, can you shift the debate enough? Can you humanize their side? Can the Democrats or the supporters humanize their argument enough to bring public support around and to sway Republicans in the General Assembly? And I just don't know whether that's enough time or not. I mean, I guess we'll know in a few weeks, right?
Yeah, I don't think it is enough time, quite frankly. And the other prediction I'm going to make right now, based on your poll findings, if this government shuts down, I think the shift is going to go to Terry McAuliffe. People right now questioning a lot of these hardball tactics. They're not comfortable to Virginians. Maybe down the road, perhaps, but all I can say is I got 30 seconds. When I came to Virginia from Georgia, everybody told me this is Richmond. It's not Atlanta. It's not D.C. You got to understand how Virginia works. And I've tried to adapt. I don't think he has. We're out of time. We want to thank Dr. Quentin Kidd for being with us. He is the chair of the Jody Ford Wasson Center for Public Policy at Christopher Newport University. Sir, thanks for being with us.